Okay, we are live and we're back this morning. It's 11 o'clock and we're going to, we have Dan W. I never can pronounce that correctly at the end, but from aviation, yesterday we had him on rail. He did a great job. We appreciate it. And I was talking to Joe Flynn this morning with good coverage you had. So today we got aviation. And Dan, why don't you take us away?
Great. Thank you. For the record, my name is Dan Delabriere. I am the Rail and Aviation Bureau Director for VTrans. So today we're going to talk a little bit about where our aviation program is and what our plans are for the next year. So before I start, I'm going to try to share my screen. Jeannie, if you will allow me to.
You are already co-host, so you can.
Okay, perfect. I will try to share my screen here. And
wow, pretty nice.
All right. So, as I think everybody knows, this is the map of Vermont. This is what we have. So we own, state of Vermont owns 10 state airports all the way from Bennington all the way up to the Northeast Kingdom. So the budget, FY23 budget, we've got a little bit of everything kind of all over the state. So the green ones on this map are ours, just to give you a little reference about how much area we cover and where they are. Our largest airport obviously is Rutland, and we have scheduled service into Rutland. Other than that, it's GA airports, general aviation airports around the rest of the state. So, all right, just last year, our big project last year was at Morrisville Stowe. We are essentially complete here. The only thing that's left that we haven't done is reinstall the fuel farm. The old fuel farm used to be right in front of the terminal building here, but because of the taxiway that we added, we could no longer keep the fuel farm there because of wingtip clearance and other clearances. So we have to move it. And so where we have to move it is up to this area on the north, just off the side here. And so right now, all the pavement's done, all the markings are done. Due to kind of supply chain issues, getting parts for fuel farms, we don't anticipate getting all our parts probably till around June this coming year. But that's kind of where the fuel. So when we're all done, this is all new taxi lane. This was not here before. We added 250 feet of asphalt to each end of the runway. So we're over 4,000 feet now, 4,200 feet total pavement length, which will help we have a lot of charter service, the smaller jets that come into here, and getting over the 4,000 foot mark. So getting to 4,200 feet made a big difference. And these are just a few more pictures of each end. So this is the south end here. We increased that pavement length by 250 feet, and we made a turnaround area here. And on the north end, same thing. Here's the additional 250 feet, and then we put a taxiway so you can get, when they land, they'll come in, they'll come all the way to the end, and they'll come right off and get onto the taxiway and go into the apron here. What they used to have to do was get to the end of the runway, turn around, and then go back to about the mid part of the runway and then go into the ramp. So they don't have to do that anymore. A lot safer, runway length's a little longer. So yeah, so that's all I really wanted to show you from last year, because I don't think the committee ever saw the project, when it was complete. So I wanted to give you folks some awareness on where we are on that project. Came out pretty well.
A lot more usage now there, Dan. A lot more usage as we improve it. Is there?
Well, I don't know that the usage has gone up. We're about the same, which I guess for COVID numbers is okay, right? Because we saw air traffic go down across the state during COVID time, but it's coming back. So I would say having it, numbers being similar is a success right now.
Yeah.
So we're fairly happy with that. So,
Okay.
and once we get our fuel farm back, we will probably increase our traffic again, because right now we have fuel. We're selling fuel there, but we're doing it out of fuel trucks. So it makes it a little harder. So some people may not be coming in and out just because it's a little harder to get it out of fuel trucks. And until we get our fuel farm put together, we'll be out of trucks. So
Okay.
anyway, so that's the big project for last year. This coming year, FY23, if you guys, I won't go through every project again like yesterday, but on tab 10 in your budget book, I'll just kind of give you the highlights of the aviation budget. Like I said, we kind of have a lot going on at each airport, different projects. And I'll start, alphabetically. We could put it into the budget. So Bennington, all the way down to the south. We've got a few things going on there. We got, I don't know if you guys remember, we did a big a runway rehab project there about 3 years ago. So that project is complete. So we don't have any big projects going on there. We do need to rehab some of the ramp area. It's gotten old and cracked. So we've got a little project there, and we've got some fuel farm repairs there. But other than that, not a lot going on in Bennington. Montpelier, which is we call it NAP, the NAP airport. We have a master plan going on there. So for us to receive FAA funding, we have to have an updated master plan filed with them. So we're in the middle of that process. And there's a few, associated projects with that. So with the master plan, you got to do an environmental assessment. You got to look at the whole property and all that. So that's all part of the master plan effort. So down in Rutland, so we got a few things going on there. We're starting design on the main runway. The main runway it's about time to rehab that runway on the main runway. So we're starting design. We probably won't go to construction there for another year or two, but we're starting our design on the main runway. And we have to correct one thing on that runway. The current runway, believe it or not, the runway is not the same width the whole way up. It's like 100 feet wide in some sections and 99 feet wide in other sections. So we got to make it straight. So that's one of the things we have to correct. So the other thing in the budget is it's in this current year, FY22, but it'll roll into 23. There's a new snow removal equipment building being put up this spring, and it should go spring into summer and be done in July. So we're also looking at, so Rutland is like I said earlier, the only airport that we have scheduled service with Cape Air, 3 flights back and forth to Boston every day. So we're required to have aviation rescue equipment there. So we do have a fire truck that we own on site, and that fire truck that we currently own is getting towards the end of its useful life. So we're working with the FAA on purchasing a new fire truck for there. We continue to have TSA. So again, we have scheduled service there. So we have to have TSA. So we pay TSA there. Moving up to Coventry, Northeast Kingdom International Airport. Kind of big news here. I think a lot of you folks know about this already, but we were able to get a Northern Borders grant, and we will be building a new terminal building, which is much needed at that airport. We are currently in the obligation stage. We have noticed that we have the funding, but we have to finish we have to get the paperwork finished up from Northern Borders, and they'll obligate the money to us, and then we'll get the design going. We have a preliminary design for the terminal, but we got to go into final design and final permitting. So excited about that new terminal building up there. So our big project coming up is Highgate up in Franklin. So Franklin County Airport. We currently have a 3,000-foot runway there. We are in the final design stages of the expansion of that runway. We're going from 3,000, well, it's 3,001. We're going from 3,001 to 4,001. You got to have that 1 foot buffer. And So that's big for that airport. That's a very busy airport. We have a lot of GA traffic there. We have a lot of private hangars there. It's one of our busier airports as far as GA use. We have, a lot of folks that are in the Chittenden County area actually drive up to Franklin and keep their planes up there. So as opposed to keeping it at the Burlington airport. So a little easier to get in and out of Franklin than it is to get in and out of Burlington. So it's a busy airport for us, and getting the extension. So what we're going to do is our first there's 3 projects. There's the existing 3,000-foot runway, and we're going to rehab that. And we're going to go from 65 feet wide to 75 feet wide, all new lights. So that's going to be the first year project. The second year project, which is next year's budget, we're going to do the 1,000-foot. We can't do it all in one, so we have to separate it into projects. We can't do it all in one for 2 reasons. One, it's a lot of work and a lot of time for the airport to be closed down all at once. But also the way the FAA funding is coming in, the FAA is funding it in separate funding buckets. So we've separated the project out into existing runway reconstruction and then extension, which is the following year. And along with the 1,000-foot extension, we're also putting a parallel taxiway on the south end. So that'll be, again, a lot safer. You get off the runway quicker, you get on the runway without having to taxi on the runway. So it's a safety issue. So that's what you'll hear me talk about this year. Next year is basically the Franklin County Airport project. It's a big project for us. And it's going to transform that airport into, I think, something more about what the current users need. We're seeing a little growing pains there, and this expansion is needed. So
George Coy still up there?
He is. Yeah, George is there. His son Cliff is our FBO that runs the operations day to day. George runs kind of the maintenance shop area and that kind of stuff. So they, buy and sell planes and maintain them and things like that. So yeah, busy airport. The Coys do a good job. They bring
antique planes too, don't they? They bring them in and fix them up or whatever.
Yeah, George loves that. Yeah.
Huh.
Mazza.
Yes, go ahead, Senator Tim.
Dan, I heard you say that a lot of Chittenden County people park their planes up in Franklin County and drive up there. I know that where Senator Mazza keeps his 3 or 4 planes, but is that a newer observation? Is that something that's happened of late? Because I know there's a lot discussing right now about airport storage and what the airport wants to do with down here in Burlington, wants to do with different parcels of land. So are you seeing an increase or a shift of a lot of the plane storage going up to Franklin County from Chittenden?
I don't think it's an immediate shift. I think it's been like this for a while. This is not. I don't think this is new. This is, but historically, people that don't want to have to deal with
traffic, all the traffic.
In Burlington, the aviation is controlled by the tower, right? So at Franklin, there's no tower. You don't have to call into the tower. You can, file your flight plan and take off. So it's a little. When I say it's a little easier to get in and out of Franklin, it's because you don't have to deal with the tower.
Mazza.
Yes, go ahead.
Dan, what's the state's largest runway?
Our largest is Springfield. It's the second. So the largest in the state is obviously Burlington. Second longest is Springfield, which we own, which is 5,500 feet. That's kind of next on my budget thing. Is we are doing. So we're doing Highgate, starting Highgate this coming year into next year, and then the year after that is Springfield. So the Springfield airport is 100 feet wide and it's 5,500 feet long, and the FAA, the new criteria for FAA, we're actually going to narrow that down to 75 feet wide, and then we're working with the FAA right now on what the length eligibility is for the length. We have some safety area issues there. New rules, the rules change from FAA, and you got to meet the new rules. So we've got some safety areas that have to be increased to 300 feet down there, which they're not now. So, but yeah, 5,500 feet currently is the second longest runway in the state, and we own that.
Can that land? What can that land? Can that land a 737 or no?
No, nothing like. Well, I suppose any pilot that wants to land anywhere can land where they want, but typically, no, you're not going to land something like that at a Springfield. It's more the smaller jets. And we get a lot of jet traffic, like Springfield. There's a user there that lives in the Springfield area, and every morning, corporate jet goes out of Springfield every morning to their business in the Midwest. So it's, these airports get used for all kinds of things, and you'd be surprised if you spent some time at these airports, you'd see the different uses. But a lot of corporate jets, a lot of private jets, those types of things.
Just in comparison, how long is Burlington?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that, Senator Ingalls. I'm sorry. I could
problem.
look that up quickly, but I don't have the answer.
We all can. I just wondered if you had it on top of your head.
No, I don't. I don't want to give you the wrong number. So
Senator Chittenden would know. He's out there every day.
Yeah. I think the city councilor or his
Yeah,
time
city
on
council, he should know.
in the cemetery commission, he hangs out right by the airport all
Right,
day.
right. There you go. Yep, that's good. That's good, Senator Perchlik. That's good evaluation. Yep. Senator Chittenden, would you like to respond?
So on that point, and people here know me in South Burlington and the airport have a big history. There's a graveyard that's owned by the city of South Burlington adjacent to the Burlington International Airport. And the community that I live in, that I serve on the city council, has been trying to get them to fix the darn fence for about 4 or 5 years, and they haven't done it. So can we put a little hook on this $500K that's going to the Burlington International Airport that they got to fix the cemetery fence? Is that doable? Is that something that you do in the T fund?
Whose fence is it?
It's South Burlington's, but it's right adjacent to the airport, and we have to have a fence along cemeteries because the state statute. They took it down when Heritage did some work. The airport took it down, and they never put it back. And we keep asking them, and and there was a change in management.
He used to get $1 million. I cut it to 500,000. So if they want to get cut again, so
The fence will cost about 30,000. So we can take 30 off the top and just direct it to a fence.
here you go. That's it.
Dan's writing it down. He's
Dan's writing it
gonna
down.
make it happen.
I can certainly have the discussion with Burlington. We don't as a general statement, we don't generally get into, we don't put our hands in and say, we want these projects, we don't want these projects. We don't kind of micromanage their projects. So the funding issue is more of a, fuel tax generation at Burlington Airport that FAA requires any revenue generated at the airport get reinvested back into the airport. So that's kind of how, in a nutshell, why they get $500,000 every year, because that's approximately the tax revenue generated from fuel tax.
Used to be $1 million. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to piss off the cemetery commission of South Burlington. Yeah.
I'm no longer on it. I dropped off in July.
Yeah. I'm sure you realize that.
It paid him too much money. He got off of it.
Yeah. He's probably the shadow chairperson of that committee. I have a question, Dan. When Senator Chittenden was nice enough to include me on a tour of Beta Technologies, and they talked about their interest in electrifying some of the airports so that their plane, helicopter, vehicle could be using the state airports as they're testing them out and as they're starting to get to use them. I think, if I remember correctly from that tour, they had already had a charging port at Rutland or something. Are you guys continuing discussing with them about how to allow electrification of other airports?
So just for your awareness, we're very connected with Beta on what's going on. We have regular meetings with them. Rutland has, when they put the charging station in for Rutland, there's an airside charging station, meaning for airplanes. There's also a landside charging station that went in at the same time for cars. So we wanted to make sure that when we put charging there, when we added electrification, we did it on both sides of the fence. And that was Beta. I mean, we helped them through it. Beta essentially funded it because it was, and Green Mountain Power. They kind of worked together and got that in. That was in last fall, end of last summer, early fall. So that's up and running, and they can go down and charge there. They can do test flights from Burlington to Rutland right now. We are talking to them about interest in other airports, like what other airports make sense for them to have electrification at now, and what airports make sense later. So we are working on that. Yes.
And the other quick question, is the snow removal building at Clarendon going to be heated, or is it just like
Yeah.
more like it is?
It will be heated, yes. That equipment needs to thaw out and get cleaned up and greased, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember what's going on there. I'll give you a little history there. We have this, it's called a mauler. It's like this big piece of equipment that has a plow on the front, has a sweeper midsection, and it's really, really long. And the current snow removal equipment, when a building that we have to back it in and detach the sweeper and then move the other piece, the front piece, the sort of the tractor piece, over to the side and park it. It doesn't, it's so inefficient, and it's, you know, it's a little bit hazardous to our folks as far as, you know, you got to have two people because you got to have the width in the back kind of guiding this piece of machinery in there. Anyway, this new building is long enough to put that equipment in all together. We don't have to detach it anymore. We can back it straight in. So that's really, yeah, so it's be much better.
Burlington's 8,319 feet by 150 feet.
Yeah, I looked it up too. Sorry. Yeah, there's two runways there. Yeah, 8,300 and 4,100. There's, yeah, that's very good.
Dan, on that
Yes.
same point, Senator Persick was just raising, I'm really glad to hear you're working closely with Beta. It's exciting what they're doing and how Beta is growing and the opportunity Beta has here. And as much as Senator Persick did the tour, hopefully I extended the offer to Senator Kitchell, Senator Ingalls, Senator Maza. Of course, you're relatively close. If any of you want to go, they'd love to have you out to the facility.
We weren't invited, were we, Jade? We weren't invited, so.
No,
No, it's all right.
no. We must not, we
choose.
must
No,
be on the S
All right,
list.
that's all right. I'll get somebody else who's out there.
Donate a pie or two, Senator Mazza. You'll get there.
Yeah, no, that's
Oh.
all right. We, no.
Do you
We
find like
could
they-
do that on the day we go to take the
Yeah.
train to Middlebury.
Yeah, and also we're going to go to see the drawbridge in the islands. We're going to do that. So, okay.
Oh, my
I'll pick
gosh.
everybody up. I'll drive around and
Take
pick
our-
everybody up and bring you.
We'll take my boat when we go into the
But I'll,
drawbridge.
I'll make sure I invite everyone.
Dan, do you feel that the Beta has everything they need from the state, or do you think there'd be any merit in us inviting some of their leadership in to talk to the transportation committee to put anything on our radar? I'm curious how those conversations are going.
I think we're working very well together. I think that they're a great company, and to your point, they love showing people around. You know, they love to, you know, show people and talk about what they're doing because they're doing such great stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, certainly if you want to have them in, they'd be happy to come in and talk.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I don't want to
I'd
speak
love
for
to have-
them, but
I'd love to have them in if we could arrange that with Jeannie and Senator Chittenden or somebody. We could give them schedule. It'd be interesting because they're really an important part of this whole aviation deal, and you hear a lot about them. They're going to grow. I mean, the way they're growing now, I understand they're growing like crazy, and it's going to be a big asset to the community. And,
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
And you know, and again, they have a good story to tell, and
Good.
so I
that'd
think
be
you guys
interesting.
should,
I'd like to hear that.
yeah, you guys should hear it. It's a good
Okay, good.
story.
Yeah, if you can work with Jeannie and probably help us out and get somebody here, it would be great. Okay.
Do you want me to do that, or Senator Chittenden, you're going to do that?
Well, whatever you two decide, however you want to do it. I don't care. Doesn't make any difference.
I mean, go ahead. If you have it's your committee, Senator Chittenden. So why don't, unless you need my help, I won't step in. How about that?
I'm going to CC you on my note, and if you know somebody else at Beta to relay it to, you do so. Does that work?
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
We just want Senator Chittenden to look good. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Just
Go
to
ahead.
finish up my budget stuff, and then we can get into more questions if that would be okay. I just want to
Yeah,
kind of get
go
to
ahead.
the end of it. So the other thing, I talked about Springfield a little bit, and the importance of that construction project. The other and the last kind of highlighted project I want to talk about is our master permitting project that we've been working on probably for a little over, well, I guess it's close to 2 years now. We're every one of our, well, nine out of our 10 airports, we are pre-permitting areas for developers to come in and put up private hangars. This has taken us a lot longer than we actually thought it was going to take us in the beginning, but we're getting close to the end. And why this is important is one of the biggest things we hear, like Franklin County, for instance, I'd put my plane there if there was a place where I could have a hangar, but I can't afford to go through the permitting process. It costs too much and takes too long to get permitted for a hangar. So we've gone ahead and done a lot of the legwork on this, and we should have most of our airports kind of pre-permitted for hangars this year. We're in Act 250 in some airports, and we're about to go into Act 250 in others. So I just wanted to point that out because as an economic development driver, this is going to be important. It's going to bring more users to each of these airports. So I wanted to point that out that we're doing that. And we're just about done. So and that's all I really wanted to highlight out of my budget. Everything else is, similar. We're going to fund Civil Air Patrol again this year, which is really important for the state. Because whenever there's an accident, that's who we call if we're going to go do a search and rescue. We call Civil Air Patrol, and they put the planes in the air and go look. So we do fund that every year. So other than that, I think that's those are the highlights of the budget. Aviation is, like I said, it's coming back from COVID, where we kind of were down, but we're coming back, and we have a lot of excitement around these airports. So
Do we make any money in any of them?
no, we do not. Just like any transportation mode, they require subsidies.
Same with our railroads. Are any of our railroads make money?
Well, no. Railroads, highways, buses, none of them make money, right? That's our business. Our business is to create transportation for the folks that live here. So
Do other states have state-owned airports like we do? As many,
Yep.
right?
We have
a lot of them for a small state.
we have a high percentage that have airports in our state that we own. But many other states do have airports that they own. A lot of municipalities own airports. Some of these larger cities own their own airports instead of the state, but their government.
Well, Burlington does.
So if I may, on this important topic that I know very well, there are a lot of municipally owned airports, but very commonly, more often than not, they shift towards regional authorities. It happened in Syracuse for very similar reasons to what BIA is looking at. Hancock, over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a lot of gradual shifts to spread the burden, to separate and untwine the airport from the municipal governance and the policy structures. So that's something that H52 would talk about. It's something I want to bring up after we get the T-bill, and it just talks about looking at airport governance models and something that's been called for that the state might shepherd in the years to come. But there are different ways than just have it municipally owned, just state owned. There's also a regional authority, which makes a lot of sense for different areas that I'm going to bring up with all of you fine folk sometime after we get the T-bill.
I often wonder why Burlington owns the airport. How we ever let Burlington own the airport?
They bought a cornfield off of South Burlington farmer 100 years ago, and that's carried over through till today. But even as the modern aviation industry has grown up around it, it's just a holdover from previous time.
Would that ever be possible, make it a regional airport?
Yes, it's been considered multiple times. In 2013, the airport commissioned a blue panel commission of really smart people, and they said they should look at regional governance with the state to find another method to separate both the bonding authority and all of the management of the airport from the city of Burlington. It happens all the time and for good reasons.
You ever had any conversation about that, Dan?
It gets thrown around every once in a while. I don't think we've ever really gotten into details on it, but the idea has been thrown around before.
So if it's property owned by another entity, what would you have to do? Eminent domain if they're unwilling to relinquish ownership?
I don't want to take anything from Burlington. I want to keep Burlington whole. I represent Burlington. What you could very easily do is they could maintain ownership of the land and the regional authority would lease it from them. And that way, actually, Burlington could extract some value that right now they can't. It has to stay all in the enterprise fund. But if they got a lease payment of pick your number, talk to different real estate agents, that money could then be freely invested in things like the Memorial Auditorium, which is currently forlorn, and so on. So they can keep the land, but the authority and the management of the airspace and all the buildings that are built with federal and state monies would be overseen by a separate entity. I'll talk to you about this for hours on end, Senator Kitchell. But H52 is just a study that's been around for 4 years, just asking the state to shepherd a conversation looking at governance models and what this might translate to.
So that's all I have as a presentation today. I don't know if there's any other questions they have for me.
Any questions for Dan?
I'm worried I'm not using this time to pitch more on airport governance. I just feel like I'm kind of an old song on this. That Andrew's.
Well, no, I think you make a good point. I've talked about that, or we thought about that for, I don't know how to do it, but I often wonder why they control, and they don't work, they don't play very well with other communities. And that's what always upset me, is because here they are located in South Burlington, the Winooski area and everything else, yet they don't, they want to control the whole thing themselves. And I don't know, in a region as busy as Chittenden County is, I mean, it is a big airport. It's not a small airport. And I would like to see some sort of involvement of communities around it more so than it is today. And I don't know a lot about the subject. You read about it in newspapers, and you read about what's happening. And, you know, that they won't even let anybody bid on the police protection out there. It's all Burlington's. And, you know, it's some of that stuff should be more regional. But anyway, I don't
created a lot of unnecessary friction over the years. And so I've
it has. Yep. That's what's unfortunate. You hear about it all the time. The F-35s and yeah. Someone was running in your district. Is someone running for a council member in your?
We have 2 council seats up and both are being challenged. So yeah, there's 2.
There was you were on the radio the other morning and asked him about the F-35s. He said he would support it. So anyway, anything else for Dan? Yes, Senator Birchlick.
No, I just have a question for Senator Chittenden on, or unless Dan has any input on it. But that charter change that we just made that added a seat to Winooski, is that at all a move to more regionalization just by putting a Winooski person, not Winooski, Williston, right?
That was Winooski. It's a step in the right direction. That aviation commission, though, is still just advisory, so they have no direct authority. They used to, but that's changed over time. So I did open some conversations about giving Williston a voice, still leaving Burlington with the majority, and so on. And that's still worth everybody on government ops that I heard to weigh into this. And even Burlington acknowledges that's a worthwhile conversation to have. I just see governance as something that we could do better at the BIA, and it's going to continually pop up over the years until we take a hard, close look at it through the state's lens.
Many years ago, the question I always had at the Caledonia Airport, there was a problem with having UPS or FedEx or those people flying to that area. There was a reluctance to have to do it. Are they able to do that today, Dan?
Well, that's one of our airports that has one of the shorter runways. So
I guess there was opposition to the lighting or something. I remember that.
But that's been dealt with quite a while back.
Okay, so they do land there now, or it's
they don't. I mean, I think they with the right pilot and the right plane they could, but they don't currently land there every day. UPS comes in every day to our Knapp Airport in Berlin, and they come into Rutland. FedEx comes into Rutland daily. So
Berlin doing well, that airport.
Yeah. There's a lot of corporate traffic that comes in and out of that airport that people don't realize. Like, of course, like Keurig up in Waterbury. Those folks come in and out several times a week.
Right. Thought about that. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a lot of private vendors there, right? That lease space from it or something, and then they run it themselves. Is that what happens?
We have an FBO there that we lease space to that kind of runs the operations and the fueling and all that stuff. But everything else is individual. There's a few corporate, smaller entities that have hangars there, but nothing, like when Keurig comes in, they don't have a space to park a plane in a hangar. They leave it outside and then they leave that same day. Come in the morning, leave that day, so they don't park it anywhere.
But like in Morrisville or George Coy he pays rent to you and then he runs his own facilities. Okay, that's how they work it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments this morning? If not, thank you very much, Dan, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
And,
much. Have a
and,
great day.
Okay, so I guess we can go off and live, Jeannie.